welcome to another session of Active Living. Today we got a very special guest. We have Scott Gwinnell here. Scott Gwinnell is a local area jazz musician and does a lot of work with some of the younger students, and has his own big band and does a lot of things with jazz. So welcome to our show, Scott.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. George, this is my thrill, my pleasure to be here with you.
Well, it's great to have you. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about where you came from and what got you interested in jazz. I mean, was there an aha moment, which says, man, I really dig this recording, or what kind of got you going in that direction?
Well, I'll tell you, George, there were a couple things in my life. One of them was taking lessons with Bess Bonnier.
Oh yeah.
And Bess she opened up jazz to me, as a profession, as an art form, to write music in, and
right.
She was incredibly influential throughout my high school, and she, I studied with my classical piano teacher who got. God bless her soul. She had a lot of patience. She used to give me classical repertoire to play, and as my wife likes to say, she says that she has different words. She says a contrarian sometimes. Sometimes I have. Yeah. She says I have oppositional defiance disorder. She says, and all I know is when I was in 8th grade. My piano teacher was giving me classical pieces, and instead of playing them, and going through the trouble to learn them and make her happy, I would instead kind of create variations that she would just be like, oh, you just stop it. So I would do crazy. I drove her crazy, and I would do whatever I could not to do what she said, but at the same time have fun. Play piano. So she knew that I did have a love for music. Mm-hmm. So she sent me to Bess, and Bess was her teacher. Bess laid down the law, and she really quickly she put up with no guff. She was serious about jazz. She was serious about teaching, and she wanted to make sure that I was first, and I wasn't at first. Even to the point where I went for a lesson, and I remember her being so mad because I didn't practice that she threw my books out the door, which was very un-Bess-like, which I found out later because she was such a nice...
But it made an impression on you, didn't it? It's one of those moments which you remember.
I came back, I practiced every week after that.
Is that right?
She was not putting up with anything. She was the first person. The second person was Paul Keller.
Oh, yeah.
And this was also because of Bess, because... Bess, who, for those who don't know her, Bess she had no sight, and so as a 15-year-old, she was my person in the car that I could drive with. So she was in the driver's seat. I was in the passenger seat I was in the driver's seat. She was blind. She was in the passenger seat. I was in the driver's seat.
Okay.
Yeah. Make sure we get that straight. As a 15-year-old, going to see Paul Keller's Bird of Paradise band.
Oh yeah, that's a great band.
Before they were even the Paul Keller Orchestra, and they were the Bird of Paradise band over at the Bird of Paradise.
Right.
And I was the 15-year-old driver who only went on the freeway once and was trying to make it out to Ann Arbor from the east side with that Bess in the passenger side. She was trying to give me directions, and we weren't succeeding, but we did finally get there. And I'll never forget that night, because as we were walking down the long passageway to the building, and the music was getting louder, that was the first time I heard a big band that was had the energy. It was complete. The soloist, it didn't matter which soloist stood up, everyone could play. They did a variety of music, things from the 1920s to modern arrangements that Chris Case wrote, and Mark Hines, and all these other great young players who were in that band.
So great.
I saw that group, and that changed my life forever, because not only were they awesome, but everyone was so nice, and people talked to me, and I thought, if I could make my life like these people who sound so good but yet are nice and approachable and obviously have the love and passion in their playing, I want to be like that. So when I was 15, I saw that, and I owe Paul such a
That's great.
big favor for that experience.
I got to tell you about my first big band experience.
Yeah.
Stan Kenton Band.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the goosebumps never went down all night. I mean, it was amazing just to hear these guys.
Which Kenton band was it?
There was this one about 19. This was about 50, 55, 54, right
Okay.
in that era.
Yeah, yeah.
And Jerry McKenzie, I don't think was playing with that band, but I have seen the band after that, and Jerry was playing with the band.
Was this like the Kenton Hi-Fi?
Yeah,
that
that era.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, sure.
I've
Oh,
got
man,
that
what a
album, by the
band.
way. That's
Yeah?
a great one.
Oh, I love that album. I got that in high school and played it until the grooves wore off.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
The same thing. Anyway, so this is kind of like your early background, and you're already at 15, 16 years old playing with the pros. I mean, you're playing with Paul Keller, and you're with Bess and
That's thanks to Bess.
the good people around the Detroit area.
She put me on the bandstand with a lot of people that I didn't deserve to be on the bandstand with yet, and all those people they gave me the template on how to act with my students today and how to bring them up and mentor them and make sure that learning jazz is more than just learning music. So I really thank all the, like Paul, Bess, Matt Michaels,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Larry Smith,
Nazaro?
Larry Nazaro.
Oh, man.
My gosh, I learned so much from Larry.
There's so many great players around Detroit. And I mean,
George Benson, another one.
Oh,
I
yeah.
learned from a ton. Just
Yeah.
great players who were an open book, and not to say they were nice to me all the time. They told me the truth when I needed to hear it, and but it was always with purpose. There's
Yeah.
always intent.
Yeah.
So no one was ever like mean to me just because they were in a bad mood.
Right. Right.
Now I'm not saying if they had a glass of wine on the, maybe that inched them towards maybe
Yeah.
not being as nice, but it was always with purpose, and it was instructive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thank them all the time for that.
We talked a little bit before we started the program about Blue Lake. And I remember a few years back going to the adult band camp and going down and listening to the Blue Lake Monster Band. And you were a member of that band. Mm-hmm. And I remember you pulling out some arrangements of your own at that point.
Yep.
And that was, how many years ago was that? That was 20 years?
Yeah, 20, at least 20 years ago now.
At least 20 years ago.
That preceded my first teaching gig, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, it was the cause of my first teaching gig, because I started at University of Toledo because I taught there with a saxophone player named Gunnar Mossblad.
Oh yeah, Gunnar was a monster.
Yep.
It was part of the Monster Band, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're the person they had at University of Toledo, who was going to be their visiting assistant professor, had to drop out at the last minute, and I was in the right place at the right time, and that kind of got me started on my college.
That's
But that was
fantastic.
thanks to Blue Lake and Gunnar.
So you're playing all over the place with all these various great Detroit musicians, and
Yeah.
then you decided to start your own band?
Yeah, that was, I did that because when I was in college at Wayne State, that they were, Matt Michaels again, another one of my mentors, was what I'm forever grateful that he would allow me to bring charts in and have the Wayne band play them. And so when I was about to graduate, I still wanted to write big band music, and a couple friends, Pat Prouty, said, you guys can play at the Music Menu, which was in Greektown. R.J. Spangler donated music stands to me to get the band started. And then big band leader gave me lights. He's passed now. I'm trying to. His son plays, and Manny Balos.
Manny Balos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Manny gave me lights. He exchanged them if I wrote a chart for him on Joy Spring. So I wrote a chart for his band on Joy Spring, and he gave me these old, the hottest stand lights that we used to. It used to raise the temperature of the bandstand about 30 degrees every time we click those on.
I got some of those, by the way.
Yep. They're in my basement now. Now we got the battery ones if we need them, but But yeah, it's so funny, like to think back on the big band. I started that big band because of college, and then and most everyone were friends of mine, and anyone who would work for little money, and because a big band, 18 people in a club,
right?
I like to call it bowling night. We have fun and we get paid a little bit of gas money, but out of the sheer economics of playing at a club, it can't pay too much. But these are a bunch of people that really love big band music, and were nice enough to, want to spend one of their nights playing my music.
Yeah, there's big bands all over the place. There's a lot of rehearsal bands, know, and I play with a band out of Clarkston called the Stardusters, and
Olivia Van Gore. Sings with
absolutely. She's great. One of your students, probably, right?
Former student, and now she's out there just killing it as a professional.
She's doing fantastic. I see her schedule, and I said, "Wow, this girl's a promoter."
She does everything. She can do everything from the playing end, the singing end, to the promoting end. Absolutely.
So, you also put together recently a series of videos or sessions on Zoom, where you brought in some professionals to kind of teach musicians about different aspects of jazz.
That's right. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be on the board of directors at the Michigan Jazz Festival.
Right.
And that's been a position I've had for about 5 years, and have really enjoyed working with the staff there. One of the things I love about them is they're extremely receptive to doing new things, and provided that it enhances jazz in the community.
Right.
And so Dennis Teeney, Vincent Chandler, myself, all 3 board members who are really kind of concerned with education, thought this would be a great thing for the community, because it would be a free resource. At the time, COVID was still very much preventing us from meeting in person. So it kind of started out of that, and we put together like monthly or bi-monthly either informative type of webinars or clinics, and all that was born out of the board wanting to kind of extend into the community a little bit. And I've been lucky enough to be the host and work on the production end of that, and it has kind of put me in the same room as some really, really great jazz educators.
That, by the way, that festival is my favorite. That Michigan Jazz Festival, 1-day festival, 7 stages.
Oh yeah.
And great musicians from the Detroit area.
Absolutely.
And that's what I really like. If I go to the Detroit Jazz Festival, you get all these guys from out of town, and you don't have as many local musicians. And you got to travel all over town to try to find the band you want. It walk all over the place. So it's I love that festival.
Yes, centralized, over 40 acts in one day, free.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the work that my colleagues and I have done at the festival, and I've been going for years, even before I was on the board, and I was impressed and loved everything that was going on. And now to kind of see how the sausage is made and see the commitment by everyone on the board and the musicians who play there, it's inspiring to be involved and to even get to lend my voice to it.
Yeah. Now you're currently working a lot with younger musicians.
Yes.
I mean, I can see that you're working with at the university level at Oakland University, and you've got a big band at Oakland.
At Wayne State, I'm running the big band at Wayne State, but I run the jazz vocal program at Oakland.
Oh, the jazz vocal program. Okay.
Yep.
And I had a chance to catch some of your vocalists at Shields.
That's
not
right.
Southfield, the one that's north.
Troy, yeah.
Yeah, and it was great. These kids were having a ball.
They were just like me, where you just needed to kind of open the door, and all of them are so creative and so engaged, and even though they thought jazz was something they couldn't do, because we don't have a jazz degree at Oakland. We have a jazz department, but we serve pretty much the other majors, to give them jazz experience. So it's just been amazing that even though there's no major, that these students have accepted it so well, and even to the point where they're ready to put that tool on their tool belt post-professionally, and get out there and like make that part of their living.
Right.
You know,
right.
and they know they can do it. They have the talent, so they're learning all the rest of it right now, and that's how to listen to other people, learn the language,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do it, with legitimacy.
Right.
By following in the path of the other great musicians in Detroit.
Yeah, it looks like a great program. And they, like I said, the kids really look like they're excited about it too.
Oh,
They just love it.
I don't know who's more excited, me or them. We both love rehearsals. I tell them I feel so at home in a rehearsal because that was my upbringing. So it's a little different to be the person calling the shots, but when I know I can guide them into doing things they love themselves, and then they get bit by the bug, and they're coming to me talking about records they're listening to,
really?
and musicians are going out to see. I'm like, you got it.
Got it.
You got it. I'm sorry you got it, but you got the bug, and it doesn't go away. You just love jazz more and more.
But how about this Aretha's Cafe? Can you talk
my
about
gosh.
that a little bit? Now you got this jam session going at Aretha's Cafe. Now I've never been to that, but I'd like to get down there.
On Sundays from 7 to 10, we do I call it like an educational jam or an edu jam. Oh, that's a real cheesy name. But I might as well just put on a T-shirt with a logo, edu jam. No, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like I call Aretha's kind of like that. That is between all my teaching gigs. That is like kind of the common meeting place for everything. So with music hall, with community music school at MSU, University of Toledo, Oakland University, Wayne State. Sunday nights is jazz night, and I tell every one of my students, I said, if you can get out there, come out to listen, come out to sing, come out to play, just have a bite to eat, just watch and see, because jazz, I apologize to my brethren in the universities, but jazz does not really happen at universities. It happens outside. We learn about jazz in universities,
right.
and we learn tools to help us play jazz, but jazz really, really happens in the clubs. It happens on the bandstand.
When you do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
When you
you
play
just
it.
can't learn it in a book.
And they have to get out there. So this is a place where they can not only get out there, be on stage, get the practical experience of playing and making decisions in the moment on stage, but they can meet other students who are doing the same thing, so they don't feel quite as alone, in this endeavor.
Yeah, it can be intimidating, I would think, for a newcomer.
It is.
And you got to kind of make them feel a little comfortable.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the whole point of that session is there's no vibing, no mean words, no just people bringing a song they want to play, and we put groups of people up on stage that we know are going to play well with one another, and so everyone leaves saying, this was productive.
Great.
I want to come back. So we've been doing that session now 8 years. It's free. We don't play an opening set. Every instrument is allowed. No matter what, we get everyone in there. And even if all they can do at the moment is maybe play a solo piano piece, we bring them up and let them do that so they're performing.
Great. That's fantastic. Now, you got another big thing that you do every summer, and that's this jazz workshop that you have going on.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about that? Because I've seen pictures, I've looked at a lot of stuff that's on YouTube or on the internet, and it looks to me like it would be fantastic for a budding new jazz musician.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. The Detroit Jazz Workshop is my summer week-long jazz workshop that it's open again to everybody in the community. I noticed that there was maybe a little bit of a lack of education opportunity for a workshop or like summer camp kind of that exists for adult musicians. Now, you actually belong to one of the few places that an adult jazz musician at Blue Lake can actually get taught,
Yep.
But most places kind of revolved, they existed as like maybe recruiting tools for colleges, so they would really only want high school students and not really take middle school students, take adults, and also not really accept vocalists, which blew my mind. I feel like I've been on a crusade since I started teaching to get equal equal training for jazz vocalists. You know, like the instrumentalists, it seems like they're given the key to the city
Right.
as young players, but the vocalists get to sing one tune with their jazz band and then go
Yeah.
sit down. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not right.
Yeah.
Then I end up going to Western with Gold Company and seeing how well vocalists can be treated, you know, and be appreciated for individual improvisers. So that experience kind of informed me, like, to say, okay, you know what, we can bring everyone together. And we did in 2009, 15 years ago, we started the Detroit Jazz Workshop, and now we've been doing it every year since then, except for 2020 with COVID year, and we're doing it again this year, July 8th to the 12th, and the application window is still open. So if anyone, if you are interested in coming, whether you're a high school student, middle school student, an adult, whether you're a beginner or advanced player, or anywhere in between, it's helpwithjazz.com. Helpwithjazz.com is the website.
Tell me about the staff you have.
Oh my gosh. Those guys keep me on my toes every day. They are such a talented group of individuals. Our staff, Vincent Chandler, who's a professor of trombone at Wayne State, Scott Cowan, professor of trumpet at Western Michigan, Russ Miller, professor of saxophone at Wayne
Fantastic,
State.
Yeah. All top guys.
Oh my gosh, yeah, every one of them. Jordan Shug, John Hill, Chuck Newsom, who's in charge of the Detroit Jazz Festival Education wing. Yeah, we all get
You
all
the
get
cream of
together.
the crop doing the teaching, which is what an experience for a young kid,
I don't know who
or an adult.
I don't know who learns more, them or me, because I sit in their classes when I have a break, and I just cannot believe how talented these teachers are, but I do believe it because I watch the faces of the students learning it, and the fact that they keep coming back year after year.
Yeah.
That I'm like, okay, we're doing something
fantastic.
right, and but it is my favorite week of the year. I absolutely love it. It's just so nice to take a week off from everything and spend time with all these people that we're doing is learning jazz for a week. So. Yeah.
Now, how about recordings? You've done a few recordings in your life.
I have. I've been probably about 40 recordings.
Is that right?
Of my own. I've released about 5 albums.
Wow.
I think it's 5. Yeah. 3 of them are with my big band, but I've also released a trio album with Sean Dobbins and Kurt Kroenke, which was a lot of fun, and also released a septet album. Based on my experience living in the Cass Quarter when I was younger, so it's called Cass Quarter Story. That and my last album, Mulgrology, with my big band, is on Detroit Music Factory, which is a subsidiary of Mack Avenue Records.
Okay.
So anyone can find those online if they're interested in hearing them. But yeah, I've been on a lot of CDs, and I guess album CDs. Whatever, recordings.
I just saw something on, I think it was on Facebook. Are you recording with Nate, young saxophone player?
Topolewski.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, talk about, like, he's a student who went to our workshop.
Yep.
Came out to our jam session every week, and he went from being what someone I'd classify as a talented high school musician to a professional musician who's still 18 years old.
I know.
Which is 18 years old, and he's playing like that with such a voice, lyricism, and he's a brilliant kid too. Like he thinks deep about this music and its philosophy.
Yeah.
He's making records. I mean, I'd love to tell you I was doing that at 18. I was just trying to tie my shoes. You know, I wasn't doing the prolific. I heard
the guy play at Shields one time with some pros, and I'll tell you what, he blew me away.
Yeah.
I said, man, this kid can play.
And he's 18. Yeah. So he's everything that's right about our jazz scene in Detroit. I think Nate's if you haven't heard Nate, you will.
Yeah.
You will soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to cover before we kind of wrap this up?
Wow, you've asked such thoughtful questions about the things that I do in my life.
You've done a lot.
Well, you definitely like to keep busy and like to keep myself useful, and I just want to fulfill the role that my teachers fulfilled for me, and that was being there for the jazz questions, for the non-jazz questions, just to be a positive influence on the people around me. And the message I always give my students, that they're sick to death of me hearing, but I'll share it because I like to live my life by it, and that's at any one moment. If I'm a leader on a bandstand, I break everyone down into one of two people. You're either a help or a hindrance, and I always want to be a help on the bandstand, and I always want everyone on the bandstand with me to be a helpful presence, and that way we can always cover for each other. If someone makes a mistake, we can make sure the performance goes as good as possible. We can all make sure to keep each other accountable, but each other in focus, so it's not just about us as individuals, but we're about the team. And so far, I think almost every one of my students kind of lives up to that, and I'm in front of me, I'm watching them become professionals, and it's so exciting. Every day I get to wake up and see the musicians that I care about, take one step closer to being like full-fledged professional artists.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
It was great.
Thank you, George.